All right, let's kick off. So thanks for being here. So what are we doing today? Oh, LinkedIn doesn't support 60 FPS. Well, if you're on LinkedIn, go to my YouTube. Kolami says hello. How's it going, Kolami? Today the topic is unfairly effective programming with AI. So I'm going to be working on RedYellowGreen, which is an open source project. And I'll be working on this issue in particular, which is a communities feature. You can think of like Reddit, but it's going to be better. It's not just a Reddit clone. But maybe we'll start with a Reddit clone and iterate from there. We'll see. And to do this, I would like to code using AI tools. And I want to compare and contrast some different options. So we're looking at 9 different options. The first is Falcon LLM, which is open source and commercially licensed. It uses the Apache license. GPT Engineer is open source. Cursor is closed source. It has its own IDE. It's an AI IDE, so we'll check that out. Codium, we're definitely not going to use, but I want to mention it because it does cool things, so it should be included in the list. OpenAI, there's a couple different ways to do this. One is using GPT-4, and one is our own wrapper model. So what do we mean by wrapper model? I'm probably talking about fine-tuning, but technically there are some other things we could do. But mainly I have in mind a fine-tuned model that incorporates some of my own content. Cerebrium.ai, we'll talk about that in SageMaker, and the option of just waiting. So AI is getting better so fast. Falcon beat a previous open model in some of these benchmarks, and it just came up in the past month. So who knows, if we just wait a month or two, there might be an even more compelling option. Let me answer a question in the chat, and then we can start talking a little bit about Falcon. We'll talk about this article. My goodness, the number of tabs you have open. That is right. They make you more tabs, more power. Cola Gem says, are there any projects you'd recommend to get a job in AI? Yeah, if you fine-tune a model, that's a great project. So here I'm talking about, let me go back to the list. Here I talked about a wrapper model that incorporates specific content for laterally. If you did that, that would be a great portfolio project, I think. Another would be a Discord bot. So we are going to create a Reddit-like feature set which involves upvoting and downvoting and things like this. If you could integrate that into Discord, and I think you could, I think that would be a useful feature, not just like making something up for the sake of it. That would be a great project. And a lot of these Discord bots are in Python. So jumping straight into data science is kind of hard, but getting into data engineering or Python programming or data analysis, and then getting into data science as a second step is a really great option. And to get into data engineering, you can pretty much do that if you just have a Python project, if it shows that you can code in Python. You don't need to do kind of crazy statistical things. If you do some visualization, data visualization, that's really great too, particularly for data analysts. So almost anything we're doing is going to end up saving data to a database. And yeah, you can like analyze that data and show, hey, A causes B, or A is associated with B non-causally, and just go through an analysis. And I think that would be a great portfolio piece too. So just create a Discord bot. It's a little more than that, but yeah, that would be a good start. So make sure that it's Python. Make sure that it's Python. So if you make a JavaScript Discord bot, that's not going to help you get a data engineering role. And then using a wrapper AI tool. No, this would not be using a wrapper AI tool. This would be creating a wrapper model, such as a fine-tuned model. A descendant model is a common way to describe this also. Basically, if you can fine-tune or train your own model, that's kind of cool. Thanks for the follows. Got a few follows already. Hey, you can see the full screen if you go over to YouTube. Link is in my bio. All right, so let's get started. Let's talk about Falcon. Falcon is at the top of the leaderboard right now for open models, and I would commend to you this article on Hugging Face. The Falcon has landed in the Hugging Face ecosystem. This is a really great article. There's a demo. It talks about fine-tuning. So to the person in the audience, I talked about fine-tuning a Falcon would be pretty impressive. The instructions are like right here. And there's some trade-offs. So when I think about what I'm doing, and here's some of the leaderboard scores. You can see here's the Falcon 48.8. This is Falcon 7B, and it's beating the other 7 billion parameter models. Here's the Falcon 40B, which is like the cool one. This is the one that I would want, and it's beating all the others. So this is sort of like low to high. So at the top here is actually the inferior model. I'm not going to go through the demo. You can try it out yourself. So the point of this would be my students can have a mentor that's always available, and they can just go chat with this model when I'm not available and get an immediate response that contains all the information that I would be pointing them to. Fine-tuning a Falcon. Yeah, I think that would be a great portfolio piece. And you got 2 portfolio items right there, right? Between the Discord bot and the fine-tuning the Falcon, and then the third one, some data visualization. Between those 3 projects, I think you would knock a entry data engineering or data analysis out of the park. If you showed up with those 3 projects and could speak about them intelligently, I would hire you on the spot. Okay. And so it's really big is the challenge here. It's open. So is it free? No, because training it and running it, you need to think about the costs of fine-tuning it, which involves some additional logical processing, pretty heavy processing. And then you also need to think about hosting it. So when we think about hosting it, one question is what sort of machines and infrastructure can hold it? And the answer is for the 40 billion model, you can use a 48 gigabyte card, you could call it. It might not be accurate to call it a card, but that's a common jargon. Or you could say a box or a machine, a 48 gig. This is GPU. GPU memory is what we care about here. And there's some code. They make it very clear how to do it. So it's really interesting. Having the code is actually not the bottleneck here. The bottleneck is having money, basically. Some more leaderboard summary. They have a instruct model, which is fine-tuned, and it does better on some tasks compared to 40B. Notice not all of them. So hella swag. The finely tuned instruct model does worse. Also, I don't want an instruct model because that involves particular syntax, and it doesn't just chat normally and do the things that I want it to do. So let's talk about fine-tuning. Let's say I'll go for PEFT. Can be technically and computationally challenging. You can do the 7B on an NVIDIA T4. So they're giving you specific infrastructure items. And then we'll talk about where you can get these. The answer is you could buy them or you could rent them. And you could rent them from a hardware place, or you could rent them from a cloud provider. You said data visualization. Yeah, that would be a great project for sure. Okay, so they're talking about how to fine-tune with PEFT. Here's some code. Great. And the short of it is that from a cost perspective, you could use this for the 7B. That's a 16 gig for the 7B. But I don't want this. I don't want the 7B. I want the 40B. The performance difference was really substantial. And so I need to go for that 48 GB option, which was mentioned earlier. It's A1000 or something. A100 or A6000. Here we go. And that is an 8-bit mode. So it's good enough. There may be some performance concerns. There might even be some output quality concerns. I'm really not sure. I think performance is the main concern there. So if you want to do this like the awesome way, you need more than 100 gigs of RAM. And that's just like out of the question. So let's look at some of these costs. Let's look for the 48 gig. Here's Falcon. Here it is on Hugging Face, the 40B. It's totally open. I can literally click deploy and it'll take me over to SageMaker. The thing is, it's too expensive. So let's look for a 50 gigabyte card. 50 gigabyte graphics card. Okay, so this is the range we're talking about. So here's an NVIDIA RTX A6000. So this can work. So I could just buy it, right? It's like $4 grand. Maybe I could find a used one somewhere. I don't know. But that's a lot of money, right? Just to train my model, it would be better to rent this thing, basically. Unless you're going to use it, unless you're like training a lot of models or you have other ways to sort of justify that value. But I can tell you for me today, I'm not ordering that. That's not what the stream is about. It's too much for me. If you're a corporation, maybe you just go ahead and do it. And there are certain advantages. It's on-prem, so you don't have to worry about your data leaking. When we think about clouding providers as a different option, I'm sending someone my data. So for me as a personal individual, that's a great trade-off. But if you're a corporation with security concerns, maybe you're willing to pay 40 times as much, or 10 times as much, 40 grand instead of 400. Sorry, 4 grand instead of 400. Maybe that's worth it to you just because of the security implications, right? So it could make sense for some people. Also, as I said, if you are training a bunch of models, or if you have customers that are going to pay you and basically make up for that really quick, that also makes sense. Now let's say I want to do SageMaker, which is cloud hosted. Well, if you go to SageMaker, you run into Cerebrium.ai, which is 70% cheaper than AWS or Vertex. So I'm not even going to talk about SageMaker because if I was going to use SageMaker, I would just use Cerebrium. That's not true in all cases, but that's true for my personal case. When would I actually want to use SageMaker? If I work for a company and they're already in AWS, it makes sense. But as a sort of hobby individual, I don't use AWS. In fact, I'm scared of AWS because I've had cases in the past where you leave an EC2 running and you end up with a huge bill. So cost control in AWS is really hard. And this is where risk becomes a really important factor in how we are going to produce our models. When we're thinking about these 9 options, let's go back and talk about the unfairly effective programming. And what do we mean by effective? I mean quick, high quality, and cheap. Now cheap with risk adjustment, cost control, etc. Okay? So the risk here, there is quality risk in some cases, but there's also risk in the sense of cost. And here is where using OpenAI would have an advantage. You can just wall your cost. It's very easy to budget. So here's my API keys. You can't see it. That's fine. I'll probably change these anyway. In billing, usage limits. You can just set a hard limit. And I don't have to worry about if I have some program running overnight, the worst damage it will do is it will eat up that 120. So cost control is very easy with the OpenAI platform. And it's not easy with SageMaker. Now let's look at Cerebrium, which is, it says 70% cheaper. Trial EC2 instances is the way. No, I warn against that severely. Please use Vercel or Netlify, or like almost anything else. EC2 expiration. I've seen so many people who are trying to break into tech, and these people don't have money, right? So they cannot tolerate risk. In general, I'm generalizing. There's a few people who have money, great. And if you're one of those people, feel free to dive right into AWS. I still wouldn't recommend it. I would just have your employer pay for it. But I've seen too many EC2 instances overrun the trial period and end up costing a lot of money. Not to mention they're hard to work with. If you're like someone trying to break into tech, it's like, why are you trying to figure out how to run an EC2? Okay, so this number, it looks really small, right? But how many seconds are in a day? So you run the math, and it's $50 a day. Thank you for the follows. Quick reminder, YouTube, link is in my bio. I'm streaming to YouTube and you can see the full screen. So it's really not cheap. It might be 70% cheaper than SageMaker, but really what that reminds us is how expensive AWS is. It is cool that they have the sub-second cold boot. That's actually crazy. So this, if you're a business, looks like a very interesting option. And they have serverless CPU, GPU. It looks like a really interesting option. But as an individual, I don't recommend this option either. $50 a day. Again, unless you have people who are paying for this. Maybe you're a freelancer and somehow you've worked something out where you're having someone else shoulder the cost. But I'm not interested in paying $50 a day for my hobby project. Linode, yeah, Linode's great. Good call, Dark Matter. What's your suggestion as an alternative to EC2? Linode is pretty good, but I would say if you're trying to break into tech, you don't need a long-lived server. So try to make a statically built project. You can use GitHub Pages. That's what I recommend. And then if you need server-side logic, first of all, you shouldn't. Like, you can break into tech without having a long-lived server. But you can check out Netlify and Vercel is what I suggested. If you truly need a long-lived server, Linode is a great option. But I would advise you, if you're trying to break into tech, just avoid that. You should have a free portfolio hosting is what I think is the best return on investment, basically. Linode is great, but free is better. What's wrong with Heroku? Heroku is not bad, right? They have a free tier. I don't know how good it is. I think when I used Heroku, the free tier was just like the performance was terrible. It's like, but maybe they've updated it since then. Yeah, as long as you're using the free tier, you can get a free dyno, right? $5 and up per month. Did they get rid of the free tier? I don't know. My advice is try to have a free hosted portfolio. They don't have free tier anymore. Oh, well, that's the problem. Why would you? So if you're paying for Heroku, like this, Heroku used to be awesome. Last time I checked, they weren't awesome anymore. The developer experience today, or like as of the last time I used it, is mid. I think Netlify was better, Vercel way better. When Heroku first came out, they had like a revolutionary developer experience, but I don't think it's competitive today. All right, let's get back on track. So Cerebrium is much more affordable than AWS, but it's still too much. And so we rule it out. So let's go back to our list. Falcon LLM, and what we're seeing here is that even though it's open source, it's too expensive. Even though it's open source, it's too expensive because training it, S3, why are you talking about S3? You can just use GitHub Pages. Please don't host your if you're an entry-level programmer, please don't host your portfolio on S3. Okay, so Falcon LLM is really great, but it's not looking very attractive for sort of the hobby or super small business in many cases because training it and hosting it is expensive. We talked about Cerebrium, SageMaker. Waiting, I'll just briefly mention that. The idea here is that every month or two, we have a new record-breaking model. So if you have a large amount of AI work, if there's other things you could be doing, it might be smarter to do those other things and sort of kick the can down the road on AI because you might get a better investment in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months, right? So just think about it. I don't want to say like this is generally a good idea because if you're always waiting, you never get anything done, but it's worth considering. Codium. Let's talk about Codium. We're just eliminating sort of the low-hanging fruit here. So Codium is awesome because it will help you write tests. And I think this is really nice for Python code. So here's Python code. Why do we care about Python code in particular? Well, the two most common programming languages are JavaScript and Python. For JavaScript, we have GitHub Copilot. And you should absolutely be using Copilot. I highly recommend that. Copilot will not implement a project from scratch for you, which is what we want to do in this stream. So Copilot is not a replacement for GPT Engineer or Cursor, as we'll get to later, but it is a great complement to those and to your everyday coding. Copilot currently does not support almost any language. It pretty much supports JavaScript and TypeScript for test generation. But this is another one of those cases where like you might just wait because if you're like, how much does Codium cost? I think it's pretty affordable. But anyway, if you get your enterprise on board with Codium, GitHub Copilot might do the same thing in 6 months, right? So there's a case to be made for moving slowly. At the company where I work, I've been a champion for LLM and AI adoption, and I have not encouraged them to use Codium. I want to set the bar with one tool at a time, starting with Copilot. There's external research on productivity with Copilot, but we want to evaluate it internally. How do we like it? How is it helping our developers and our unique use cases? And I don't want to cause a bunch of organizational chaos where I'm throwing like 5 tools into the mix at the same time. I want to make the case for one, that becomes a new standard, and then maybe 1 or 2 quarters later, you can try out a new one. And so that's kind of the way that I pace these things. For context, I'm in a medium-sized business. If you're in a much larger business, maybe you have an opportunity to parallel test a few tools at a time. But for medium and small businesses, trying to get organizational coordination on a bunch of new tools at the same time is really just it's frictionful. It creates problems. Lynn says, what language is this? The code in front of us is Python. The code in front of us is Python. Okay, so I will not be using Codium, but this is a great call out if you have a Python code base where you want to greatly enhance your testing, check out Codium. This is kind of a specialty tool, right? It's specially focused on coding. So it is not going to meet our use case today of generating a code base from scratch. OpenAI recently went through a cost reduction so that GPT-3 and 3.5 are really affordable. Function calling, and other API updates, including lower prices. So this is like hot off the press, June 13th, and today's the 17th. So this is like 4 days ago. Thanks for answering. Very welcome. So 3.5 Turbo is like way cheaper now. Does it have the actual price on here? That's the Ada model. Yeah, here it is. 0015 per 1K input tokens. So the interesting thing here is it is per input. It is not per second. So I can have a service like a model, and I'm not incurring continuous cost. I'm only incurring cost when my customers make a request. So if I could have a way to attach the cost to the customer at request time, maybe they submit a web form, and it charges their account and it fires off the request. And I can move that cost center to the customer so I'm not having to carry a bunch of cost. Then this could really, really, really make sense. Not to mention, I also already talked about how easy it is to cost control with their usage limits. And really, they're just an industry leader in terms of model performance and facilitating you as the sort of like developer or IC or technical individual or data engineer or whatever, facilitating you doing that fine tuning. It's really a best in class implementation experience. If you wanted to take GPT 3.5 Turbo and basically use that and have some sort of wrapper around it, and that wrapper could come in different flavors. You could fine tune it. You could also just make requests to it with a little bit of prompt engineering, just like prepend a prompt to give it some additional context for your use case. So this remains to be a really attractive option, and we might do this today if other things fail. One of the issues with 3.5 is it's not GPT-4, and GPT-4 is night and day better. I've previously done experiments, and I've demonstrated this, and other people have demonstrated this, where the output quality with GPT-4 is way better, so we should prefer GPT-4 if possible. There's rate limiting issues if you're talking about GPT-4 in the browser. So there are problems. It's not a free lunch. And that's where Cursor comes in. One other issue is if I am using GPT-4 myself, I need to do the prompt research. I need to come up with the prompts. I need to write the wrapper scripts that call it and then deal with the response and then update it, because we're talking about generating a code base. So I would rather use something off the shelf, and that's where GPT Engineer comes into play. So GPT Engineer is an open source, and I forked it here, so this is my fork, but the original is from Anton Asika, over 10,000 stars. And yeah, previously there was something called Small Developer, which you may have heard of, and this is a similar thing. Is it's basically an agentic LLM tool, and it can use GPT-4 to build your code base. So it does all that work for you. Lil Jord, what are the best places to find entry software engineering jobs? I have a CS degree but no professional experience. So Lil Jord, I want you to repeat after me. I do have experience. I do have experience. Stop saying I have no professional experience. Start saying I do have experience. Because first of all, if you got a CS degree, I know you wrote some code. And you can really boost your efficacy there if you create a GitHub portfolio. Hopefully you already have one, but if you don't, make one today. When you get off this call, go create a GitHub portfolio. And that is proof that you have experience. So don't let these employers push you around. And if you have any issue with confidence or anything like that, book a call with me in my bio. I can make sure you have a rock solid portfolio. We'll get you ready for the job, interview, and so forth. The place that you find these jobs, the main two, are LinkedIn Jobs and Indeed. LinkedIn Jobs and Indeed.com. There are some other smaller places. You can check out hired.com. You can check out Cord. Follow me on YouTube. Follow me on TikTok. I've made videos about these places. But the main two by far are just LinkedIn Jobs and Indeed.com. Wow, that's so nice. Thank you, Lynn Rose. I appreciate the support. Appreciate it. Been working on GitHub portfolio. Awesome. Awesome. Hey, when that portfolio is ready, send it to me. And if I like it, I'll give you a referral. That'll be a help too. Don't sleep on the social networking. You need to make sure you're social networking. Big Mike says, new Python Django dev. What should I put in my portfolio? Well, you should put Python and Django in your portfolio. If that's the job you're getting, that's the portfolio you need. And you really only need a couple projects. 3 can be good, but if you have if you have 2 solid projects, you can pretty much start interviewing. And then 3 projects will be more than enough for sure. Some of the common projects, if you're asking what project specifically, I always recommend a blog. Blogs are really easy for people to understand. A portfolio site is good, but you want a portfolio site that has multiple portfolio items. So I only really recommend that as the 3rd or 4th project. So you can do a blog. For Python, data analysis, some data visualization, a Discord bot. These are some common ones there. Big Mike says, working on a blog right now. Cool, man. Keep me updated. I hope it goes well. Deny says, so will you use GPT Engineer? Yes. basically, let's go ahead and cut to the chase. There's two tools really. When you narrow this thing down, there's two tools that are in the front for what we want to do. There is number one, Cursor, and there's number two, GPT Engineer, and then there's number three, OpenAI directly. GPT Engineer can use GPT-4, GPT 3.5, or Falcon. So why would I go through the effort of doing a direct application work with OpenAI? Plus, here's another important thing. You have to go through the waitlist to get OpenAI direct access for GPT-4. So it's not even accessible. And that's a reason that this gets crossed off the list. And that's a reason that Cursor gets prioritized, because Cursor gives you GPT-4 access. So there's free, which you can use GPT-4 10 times total. I thought it was 10 times per month. It's 10 times total. So the free tier is kind of lame. I mean, maybe, I guess it seems like it could help you if you literally want to test using it once or twice. But I would go for the pro tier, 500 GPT-4 uses per month, unlimited 3.5 uses. So this will give you GPT-4 access to build a code base, and there's a question mark there. I don't know if it'll build it from scratch or if it is more like GitHub Copilot and that it can read your code base, but it really only does updating instead of creating from scratch. Let's look for this word heal or refactor. I'm not seeing it. Where did it talk about its features? Heal. Refactor. Auto debugging, great. Auto fix lint errors, that's super cool. It's super fast. GPT-4 is 3 times faster than when using the OpenAI API. That's cool. It uses VS Codium, which is the open source base of VS Code. So it's a proprietary browser, but you get access to all the VS Code extensions. Let me pop this into Google because one of the key killer features here is not coming up. Heal. Refactor. It's so new that it's like hardly indexed. Can I go to the cached result? Here's the cached result. The word refactor was on there, and now it's not showing up. Thank you for the hearts and the likes and things. Quick reminder, you can go over to YouTube and see the full screen. Link is in my bio. I'm trying to grow my YouTube channel, y'all. I'm trying to get over 1,000 followers, so please check me out over there. Check out grit.ip. Okay, let's check it out, grit.ip. Grit.io, okay, grit.io. Fix technical debt automatically. Okay. Python is coming soon, JS and TS today, great. What about Ruby? No support for Ruby. This looks cool. Yeah, I'll look into this more off the stream. Fix tech debt automatically is really, really important. Let me make a note of this. So it doesn't generate code from scratch, but it could fix tech debt automatically. Is it an LLM? Do you know? Interviewing for this startup, what do you think? I think it looks cool, but I only looked at it for 15 seconds. But it looks pretty cool. Yeah, keep me in the loop. Let me know how you're how your loop goes. All right, great. So let's get to some code. It's time to get into some code, isn't it? But basically, all three of these are options. And the only reason I would want to work with OpenAI directly is if GPT Engineer just like doesn't work for some reason. Like if both of these don't work, then I'll go to OpenAI directly. But for my use case, which is I want it to generate code for me, ideally from scratch and at a large scale. So GitHub Copilot will generate you code, quote unquote, from scratch at a small scale. I can type a comment and it'll implement to some or whatever. But I want to be able to create multiple files and the file structure in a working application. And this has been demonstrated with GPT Engineer at what I would call a medium scale. So let me give you one video reference for that. Here's Prompt Engineering. Excellent, excellent YouTube channel. I highly recommend them. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. And when you're done, you can go subscribe to them. You code every day. Respect. Thank you so much. GPT Engineer is completely free. Yes, it is. However, GPT Engineer is software. It is not the model. It connects you to a model. So the engineer is free, but you have to pay for whatever model you're connecting it to. Does that make sense? So it ends up not being free because even as we talked about, we could use this together with Falcon, which is the best-in-class commercial open model. But even Falcon, you have to like have some hardware that can support it. And like it doesn't run on your computer, it's too big. So you would need like a $5,000 computer and you could pay for that and you'd be good. Or you could pay for some ongoing hosting option, which it looks like the best prices we can find are about $50 a day. And so pick your poison because if you run that $50 a day for 6 months, you would be better off just buying the $5,000 computer. And using OpenAI directly seems even more affordable because you're paying per invocation or per transaction instead of per second. But then we circle back to why would I use OpenAI directly when there are these two awesome tools that interface with OpenAI for me at a level I can't get to, the GPT-4 level. I can't even get to that even if I wanted to. I could say, hey, OpenAI, take my money, and they won't. I'm currently on the wait list. They haven't enabled me yet. And so this is how we get to this order of priority. I want to use Cursor. If it sucks, I'll use GPT Engineer with GPT 3.5. If that experience sucks, I'll write my own OpenAI integration, and then it will have to be 3.5 tier because I'm waitlisted for GPT-4. And it's really, I think it's kind of debatable if Falcon can beat 3.5 tier. But hopefully we don't have to deal with all that complexity. When I say 3.5 tier, there are actually a ton of different models when you get into the weeds. OpenAI models. So GPT 3.5 Turbo is like the well-known one, but they have a bunch of specialty models. So there's 4, 3.5, DALL-E, Whisper, Embeddings, Moderation. 3, like forget about 3. Don't use it. But you see they have these are the 4 versions. They have all these different sort of specialized DaVinci code. These models were superseded by the more powerful 3.5 models. Yeah, so pretty much when I say 3.5 tier, it's like any of these. And then I think Falcon is competitive with 3.5 tier, and I'm not sure, depending on the task, would Falcon beat the best one of these. So that's kind of a complicated comparison. But GPT-4 is going to smoke them all, right? So we can sidestep that whole problem by just getting access to GPT-4. Do you think new grad market is getting better, by the way? Absolutely, yes. If you're a new grad and if you're having any trouble, hit me up, link in my bio, and we can figure out why you're having trouble because you should be able to get a job. Amazing if you're already a senior system architect, created a new markup J schema for data models. Oh, interesting. I don't know that I really have a use for that right now, but that's interesting. Yeah, feel free to message me if you want to talk more about that. Okay, so we got let's get into the two, Codium and GPT Engineer. Close Grit, close this, close this. Here's Cursor. I'm logged in. I'm logged in over here. And yeah, you've used no requests. So how do I download the Cursor IDE? Download for Mac. Here we go. How did you hear about us? Through Discord? Oh, wow, your form is broken, homie. White on white text. Look at that. White text on the white background. Discord. Please fix this form. Cool. That's how you know that they're real hardcore into AI, because like their web form doesn't work. Tips on getting higher salary and jumping companies. The way you get higher salary is you make companies bid for you. So you need to be able to manage a job search where you have different interviews ongoing at the same time. You get offered within a couple weeks of each other. You need to be able to say politely, hey, let me think about this over the next week. And basically manage that to where you have multiple offers on the table at the same time. And then you say to each company, you know, this other company is paying me and you got to beat them, basically. That's the main way to get a higher salary. As well as just like choosing the right companies to begin with. So like big tech is going to pay more than tier 2 and 3. To avoid abuse on our backend, we ask that you log in. Yeah, absolutely. How cute was that? They're like, can you please log in? Like, bro, that's table stakes, right? You log in. Allows SQL create statements, strong type models, and complete CRUD data layer by GPT. That does sound cool, actually. You may now proceed. Okay. SAS Elder. I wonder if you're talking about this. It looks like you're not talking about that, huh? You have a lot of patience. Thank you so much. I'll make a note of this thing. Cool. So we got this download. And yeah, here's the IDE. Let me move this. Keep in dock. Want to launch Cursor from the command line? You can add the code or Cursor commands. Let's install Cursor. Oh no, there's a fly over here. That's awful. I have to get my chunkless. I still got 0 chat messages on my YouTube channel, y'all. So make sure to go to YouTube, link in my bio. You'll be able to see the full screen. And I'm trying to grow my YouTube channel. If you follow me on TikTok, thank you. But you will be missing my latest content because I'm in my YouTube era. So I'm posting a lot to YouTube that I'm not posting to TikTok. Welcome to Cursor. Thank you. To get started, let me upgrade this. Let me upgrade this first of all. I'm going to drag this off screen. I don't want to be using the 3.5. I want to be using 4. That was beautiful. That was the easiest That was the easiest checkout process ever. It was integrated with Google Pay. Literally hit the button and it was good. Sauce Elder says, nope, it's mine. All right, cool. Yeah, let me know what you're talking about. I'm starting to learn to code. What language would you recommend that I start with? The answer is JavaScript. Learn React, not Python. Start with JavaScript. Build a basic web page, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Work with the DOM API and vanilla JavaScript. You're going to hate it. That's a good thing. After you start hating it, use React. You'll realize why React is awesome because it abstracts the DOM API for you. You might not even know what that means right now, but if you take that approach, you'll really appreciate what React does, and then switch into TypeScript as soon as you can. How many monitors do I need to be using to be good at coding? You can do one monitor. These are micro optimizations. I like 3 monitors, so there is research out there that indicates that if you work with 3 monitors, you're going to have on average around a 40% higher productivity compared to 1 monitor. That's great, but you can totally get a job with just one monitor. How many languages do you know? Like at least 5. Let's see. Okay, Python, Ruby, PHP, JavaScript. Do you count TypeScript as different from JavaScript? I guess so. Do you count HTML, CSS, SQL? Are those languages to you? Visual Basic. Please don't ask me to code in Visual Basic. I hate it, even though I was full-time for years and led a team. Yeah, so around 10, I guess. Oh, he says no. Okay, so if you don't count DSLs, then I guess closer to 5. How do you sort through those tabs? What about assembly? No, I don't write assembly. I don't want to write any assembly. Thanks. Okay, so here we are in GPT-4. How does this thing know? Thanks for being here, y'all. Mike Martinez just jumped from TikTok. Thanks for being here. Picked Python out of a hat and kind of felt like I might have wasted time because everyone keeps saying JavaScript. Hey, Python and JavaScript are the top 2 beginner-friendly languages. So it's up to you. Like if you're working with Python and if you love it, stick with it. But if you hate it, switch over to JavaScript. We do different things with them, right? So if you're trying to write a front-end application with Python, that's terrible. And that's one of the reasons there's this PyScript thing going around. And there's PyReact. Golly. This thing gives me a heart attack. I get anxiety from this thing. Please don't use this thing if you're trying to learn to code. This is like a fun, interesting thing. If you're like a senior and you just like messing around with goofy things, then check out PyReact, sure. If you're trying to break into tech, don't use these at the start. So with Python, do data things, and for web development, pick JavaScript. By the way, if you use JavaScript and if you hate it, I recommend 3 tries. Give coding 3 tries because you're going to do very different things. So take a break, take a month off, go relax, come back and try a different language. And then the third thing is try a language you've already done in a different application. So maybe you hate web development, but you can still try crypto or IoT or mobile development, something like that. Shardul, have you tested out GPT Engineer? That's what this stream is about. So we are going to try Cursor, and if Cursor fails us, we will use GPT Engineer. I love Python, just not getting emails back from companies, not even denials. Do they just take a while? They should take about 2 weeks. You should hear within 2 weeks. If you don't hear back in 2 weeks, all right, check out Latterly Slides and book a call with me if you need help. So here's Latterly Slides. You can Command F or Control F if you're on Windows, and you want to go to the curriculum file. Like I teach people to land jobs in coding, and the curriculum is open source. So you can read it yourself, but if you're having trouble understanding or applying it, please book a call with me. So job search. So here's how you run a job search. Here is the scripts that you use. Here's a tracker template to keep track of the places that you've applied and your contacts there and what you're negotiating salary and your other notes. And when you talk to a hiring manager, for example, this is what you say to them. You say, hey, I just applied for React developer at Target, and I see you're a manager there. Can we have a 5-minute call and I can understand how you're using React at Target or whatever. Thanks for the questions. By the way, if I don't get to your question during the stream, please leave a comment on one of my YouTube videos and I will reply to you there. We just released a Pi package for modularizing cloud notebooks. Great stuff. That's pretty cool. What's up, benevolentmachines.org? Thanks for being here. Thanks for contributing to the community. Would you recommend I use YouTube or something like Free Code Academy to learn? Yeah, you should use my channel on YouTube. The link is in my bio. That was such a softball. I love it. Seriously though, follow me on YouTube. And Free Code Academy is probably the best thing for your resume if you have $0 to spend. But it's not going to actually teach you very well. It will look good on your resume because it's very popular and famous, so people are familiar with it, and that makes it look good on your resume. Recruiters will actually know what it is. But the educational curriculum and the content is, frankly, pretty low quality. It's like the bare minimum. So I don't say avoid Free Code Camp, but I do say do not on your life stop with Free Code Camp. And just because you got a Free Code Camp cert, please don't think that entitles you to a job. Like, it doesn't. It's the bare minimum. Recruiting question, is the East Coast market better for data engineers or data scientists? Better than what? Better than the West Coast? No. East Coast is not significantly better than the West Coast. Now, if you're asking, is it easier to land a job as a data engineer or a data scientist? It's easier to get your foot in the door as a data engineer, for sure. Unless you're like me and you have a PhD in economics, then you can probably just drop in as a data scientist. Data engineer versus data scientist, thanks. Hey, very welcome. Thanks for being here. Something like Coursera better. Yes, Dakota, that is right. And if you followed me on YouTube, you would have seen me make this video. Coursera and Meta, become a front-end developer. So this is the single best online course that you can take. You can watch the video there, but basically it's the Meta front-end developer professional certificate. This is the single best course that you can take to break into tech. Again, if you take it and if you decide that you hate front end, don't give up on programming. But this is definitely the first thing you should try. And they are starting a cohort starting today. So I don't know. Maybe you should go check it out today. All right. Let's get back on track, y'all. Thanks for being here. So what are we doing? What we're doing is we want to confirm that this is using GPT-4 now. Look at that. I can click here, and I don't know if you can see it on the screen, but in light text it says GPT 3.5, and then I can click to GPT-4. I love that. I've just started using this tool. I installed it here on this stream with you, but I already love it because it's really obvious which one you're using. Okay, let's read through this README. Import settings, features, chat. Cool. Oh, wow. Command K. Write a CLI game of tic-tac-toe. Whoa, this is lit. Okay, let's use 3.5 because I have a lot of prompts. I think I have unlimited with 3.5. Write a CLI game of tic-tac-toe. Oh, it just dropped it right there. Oh man, I really don't like that. It just put it wherever my cursor was. Bro, they dropped a Python. What the? They dropped a Python program in the middle of my markdown file. What's going on? What? You should have like made a file or something, right? Projects, Python, main.py. So I'm going to reject all. Do you want to install recommended extensions for Python? Yes, please. And it's literally the VS Code, PyLance, and all. Cool. Hey, if you're enjoying the video, please like and follow and share it with whoever you know that is interested in coding. Okay, so we have the Python tools. That's great. Probably want to get the TypeScript tools as well, right? npmi start. What is this? They have an index page. You need to enable JavaScript. Okay, all right, bye. Let's get rid of the... What am I connected to? Do I even have like a Git? This is not connected to a Git repository. What am I even connected to? This is weird, right? I should have a Git repository. Terminal, new terminal. So I am under my home folder. They just put this in my home folder. Okay, that's weird. Random old man followed the creator. Thanks, random old man. So one thing that I want to do is like add my actual workspace over here. I'm working on the RedYellowGreen repository. I want to try two different ways. One is I want to try making it from scratch, and two is I want to try augmenting the existing repository. Let me chat. Can you read an existing repository? Yes, I can read an existing repository. However, I would need access to the repository either through Git or by having direct access to the file system. Should I add my repository to the workspace, or is there a GitHub side integration? File system, great. Hosted in Git, clone repo on a local machine, yep. You can use the GitHub integration in your code editor. Ayo. Nice. I love how it explains how to use itself. Okay, so I'm going to close the entire app. Now I'm going to move my terminal into my actual workspace where my actual code is. And I'm going to go into, let's see, laterally slides rect. I'm going to clone RedYellowGreen. So RedYellowGreen is a tool that helps me understand my quality of my social media content, and it grades it, red, yellow, or green. And we want to enhance this tool. Am I in VS Code or Cursor? So right now I am in VS Code. Yeah. So I'm going to git clone RedYellowGreen, and now I'm going to Cursor. And that opens Cursor. So let me close VS Code. This is wild. So it's literally almost one-to-one with VS Code. That's really wild. So I cursored in my workspace, and it did not do it right. It basically opened up the other thing. So here I'm going to add the whole works. Let me just add RedYellowGreen specifically, I guess, and rect, and laterally slides. Cool. So we got these 4 projects. Brandon shared the live. Thanks, Brandon. Quick reminder, YouTube link is in my bio. And you can see the full screen over there. I'm going to ask it, what are the names of my Git repos in the current workspace. No, it should have told me laterally slides rect and red, yellow, green. As an AI, I don't have direct access to your file system or your workspace. See, this is confusing. Let me copy this. As an AI, I don't have direct access to your file system or workspace. When I said, I meant that if I were a human programmer, golly. This is making me want to switch into GPT-4 mode. Can you read the code in my, what is this thing, Cursor app? Can you read the code in my Cursor app? Okay, so this chat apparently cannot read my file system, is what I'm learning. So this is more like a GitHub Copilot X kind of thing. What extension is that? This is not an extension. This is an entire IDE. It's called Cursor, cursor.sh. Okay. Can Cursor generate a new application from scratch? Yes. Open Cursor, create a new project, choose programming language, follow the prompts to create a new project. Can Cursor refactor my app? You can use built-in refactoring tools. Renaming variables, extracting code into a new class. Interesting. Cursor.sh, got it. Thanks for being here, Wendy. Good to see you. Whoa. Oh, that's my reflection. That's weird. That was really weird. I'm going to close that extra monitor over there. Okay. Mike says, dude, I'm going to live on laterally slides. That's awesome. Glad to hear it. Ooh, more energy drink. Let's go. Leslie, what's up? Long time no see. This looks like, oh, Chardol. What's up, Chardol? Thanks for being here. I think GPT Engineer works better as it creates multiple files, etc. Yeah, I'm starting to think that I should be using GPT Engineer, right? I'm not either that, or I just don't know understand how to use this IDE. So we can make, like, it seems to be able to put the code in my file, but I don't see it making new files. That's the issue. Chat with current file. Oh, okay, hold on. There's a selection thing called chat with current file. I hope it is not a GPT 3.5 thing. It might be, right? Maybe I need to activate the GPT 4. Got to go. Have a great stream. Thanks. Thank you for being here. Johnny says, is this VS Code? No, this is called Cursor. You can see on my dashboard, I don't know, what do you call this thing at the bottom, this bar at the bottom? This is an application called Cursor, but it uses VS Codium, which is the open source core of VS Code. You can think of like the Chrome browser is built on top of Chromium, which is a open source core. In the similar way, this Cursor IDE is using the VS Codium open source core. So I can still install VS Code extensions, for example, and it kind of looks like VS Code. Doc, thank you. Thanks, Nokia. Maybe try reading the docs. Yeah, that would be smart, except I'm expecting the chat should have the docs self-contained. Okay, so let's chat with entire code base. Looks like they shipped this application with a typo in it. they put an extra quote in the starter code. Vercel made a package called AI on NPM with React ChatGPT components. That's awesome. What is the advantage versus VS Code? This one has built-in AI tools. That's the advantage. Searching the code base is a little bit slow, but I guess that's to be expected, isn't it? Open a folder, workspace. Oh no, what just happened? Okay, let's do this. Oh, this is cool. It kind of figured out some extensions to install. That's great. So here I'm not using the multi-root, I'm using a single root, and maybe that will make it easier to understand my code base. What are the names of my top level folders in this code base? I don't want it to tell me how, I want it to list them. I think I might hate this thing, actually, the more I use it. I apologize for misunderstanding your question. As a language model, I do not have access to your file system. So why does it say, oh, and it went to chat with current file? It says chat with codebase over here, but it somehow like left that mode? I don't know. We're getting close to... Shardul says, the AI tools just create a file structure. Yeah, we're getting close to saying that Cursor is not in a usable state, basically. We're not there yet, but we're getting close. Look how long it takes to understand my code base. This is not a particularly large code base. This is one of my smaller projects. Okay, while it is catching up, we can go ahead and get started with GPT Engineer. Okay, so this is maybe a little confusing, but now I have Cursor and VS Code open. There are two different instances. 1.79, the latest VS Code. What's up? What's up? Here, let's start the install. So I'm going to ls cd into GPT Engineer. I'm going to pip install dot. I don't have Python on this machine, do I? Python version. Okay, let's go install Python. That's hilarious. I'll hang around since I'm too lazy to try out GPT Engineer. I love it. Thank you for being here. That's a real programmer mindset, if you ask me. Why do the work when someone else can do it for me, right? Okay, downloads. 311. Perfect. Why is it hard to join your Discord from your link you provided? Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes people tell me that. I think maybe every 2 or 3 streams somebody says that. It might be if you're trying to tap the Discord link inside of TikTok, it might be like an incompatibility with TikTok, I guess. But I'm pretty sure if you copy the link and open it in your browser, it'll work just fine. By the way, are you on iOS or Android? That would be interesting if you're on an Android device. I've personally never had that issue, but sometimes people mention it to me. Also, if you go to my YouTube, you can follow me over there and you don't have to worry about Discord. No, Discord's great also, right? They're pretty different tools. Where can I practice coding project? You should create a GitHub repository. Is learning Python difficult? If so, how long to learn? Yes, it can be difficult, and most people who are interested can learn the basics within 6 months. This idea that you're going to master Python, you're not going to master Python. I've been programming for 10 years and I have not mastered Python. So please do not try to master it. What you should be doing is you should try to learn it well enough for your task at hand or to land a job, which may be your task at hand. There's this concept called YAGNI. You ain't gonna need it. So you should just try to solve the problem in front of you. Don't try to understand everything about Python. That's like the wrong way to learn. By the way, that's one of the things that really bothers me about traditional CS degrees is they will try to teach you all of these abstract data structures and they will try to teach you about everything involved in programming. And it's so vain because you don't use that stuff and people don't retain it. You don't need to know how heaps work unless you're like on a very small number of programming teams actually deal with that. And they're specialists in that, right? Okay, so here we are. This one is the cursor, and this one is the VS Code. Yo, it is still searching the code base. List the files in mailers. Change all of my JS files into TS files. With tools, what does it mean? It seems like there's an issue with the search action. What is wrong with the search action with tools? I'm not sure. I'll have to check the documentation to see if there's any issues with the search. Searching for test. Okay, so it can search with a browser. Bro, it's literally looping on itself. Oh, okay. Cursor, you're fired. Cursor is fired. This was fun, but Cursor is fired. I'll check back in 6 months or something when it's less shit. Wow, Cursor is so fired, y'all. GPT Engineer time. Let's go. But AI is going to take over the world. Yeah, it's going to like take over the world and like get busy having a conversation with itself where it's confusing itself. It's like the year is 2050 and quantum computers are still just talking to themselves. We have no idea what they're doing. Fresh Skates says, what is this? We're trying to get AI to build a program for us. Isn't this hilarious? We keep hearing about how they're going to take developer jobs, but I can't find a tool that can even make a program. Like, GPT Engineer can make a program of small complexity. We will find out today if it can make a program of moderate complexity. I've seen it make a self-contained HTML file that had JavaScript, CSS, and HTML, and it was working quite well. But I want to do more than that, so we'll see if it can handle more than that. It looked like AutoGPT where it just recursively keeps going. Yeah, that's right. Okay, so do I have Python now? I think I need to restart my shell. Let's trash this shell. Did I actually install? I don't know if I actually installed Python yet. We'll go to the downloads. Terminal, new terminal. Python version. I don't have Python, so I didn't actually install it. Cursor Mac installer. Nope. There's the 3.12 pre-release. Ooh, that's tempting. I'm gonna go with 3.11 still. So this didn't install for some reason. Oh, I think it just wasn't done yet, right? La 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 la. You must agree. Okay. You must install. Yeah, we already did this, right? Comes pre-installed in Mac. Yeah, it wasn't showing version though. See? Is it just not hooked up to my Zish? Is that the issue? Also, I don't think 3.11 is pre-installed, is it? Yeah, it's still not here. What's going on? What other shell do I have? Let's go to bash. It's not in bash. That's all I got. Check to see if you have the interpreter. Yeah, that's right. I could do Python 3. Okay, so now I got 3.11. I thought I just installed 3.11.4. Why is it giving me 3.11.3? I don't think and do I have the Pi alias? Yeah, I don't think I care. That's good enough. So I might have two versions on my machine. I actually don't care that much. Okay, so do we use Poetry or anything? No? We just straight up do this? Cool. All right, let's get them. I think VS Code is not seeing the interpreter. Yeah, usually I like to use Poetry for this reason. But I think we can go along with it for now. We don't have a Vem or anything. This is my fork. So yeah, I'm gonna add Poetry. Do I have Poetry? I do have Poetry. So Poetry init. Poetry install. Tool section not found. And here's where I can use GPT-4. Fix my tool section, homie. Yeah, where is Python 3? That's true, but I want to use poetry. I don't want to use a system level global one. Is there a dash? There's a dash, right? Tool.poetry. What is poetry? It's a package manager for Python. It kind of works like Yarn, so it'll give you a lock file and stuff like that. You'll need Conda next. You good? Do I really need Conda? Oh man, I shouldn't be doing this if I need Conda. Let me read through that README. I didn't read through it all the way. Conda. It doesn't talk about Conda. Do I have Conda? I mean, I have it, I guess, if I need to. Poetry configuration is invalid. Properties are not allowed. All right, y'all, I think I gotta go in the next couple minutes. Sounds like my little kids are waking up. All right, we finally got poetry installed. Okay, what's the CLI command to let VS Code know about my poetry Python interpreter? It's getting this wrong. There is some poetry command to create a Vim folder. This is the one. This is the one. Okay, so this is the one. And now I can LSA and I have my .vim, cd.vim. Okay, so now I have my poetry virtual environment. So I can select my interpreter and grab it right there. Okay, so now, and that was Command-Shift-P, and then you pick Python interpreter. So that's how I told VS Code about my interpreter. Thanks for the follow, Brett, and Stop Restrict Act. Thanks for the follow. Quick reminder, you can go over to YouTube and see the full screen. Okay, so let's Python install, where it says pip install. Here I will add a note, and this fork I have added, oh, and let's look at the poetry.lock. So does it have the things that I would expect? So we go to the Command F dependencies. So for example, OpenAI is listed here, and in the lock, OpenAI is listed here. Great. In this fork Vanderveer, I have added poetry. So you can get a Venv and lock file and cool stuff. Cool. Create a new empty folder with a main prompt file. All right, a new empty folder. So I'll make a new folder. Let's do a hangman game. And a main prompt file. There's no extension, it's just like that. Okay. Fill in the main prompt in your new folder. Make a hangman game in this folder. Write it in Python and use ASCII art for the hangman that gets updated with every incorrect user response. There's no formatter for plain text. Yeah. I would kind of like it more if this was a markdown file, but whatever. Run Python GPT Engineer my new project. Okay, and so for me that will be hangman game. Command not found. So here let's do poetry run Python 3. What IDE are you using? VS Code, that's right. So it's looking for nested GPT Engineer main workspace GPT Engineer main.py. It says it doesn't exist, but it's right here. What does it mean it doesn't exist? GPT Engineer. Okay. Okay. Because one has a dash. I made it work, but I used Conda. Cool. Good, good. Yeah, Conda's fine. I don't like Conda, but I don't like mixing Conda and pip and stuff like that. But if you already have your computer set up for Conda, then it's cool. I see. It's an underscore. Yeah, so that's a mistake in their docs. It should say this. It should have an underscore. Hangman game. How is it getting nested 3 levels deep? Okay, because I'm running it from there. I see. All right. Hi, what are you working on? We're trying to get GPT Engineer to build us this Hangman game. No API key provided. Cool. This is an expected issue. Where do I put it? You can set your API key in code, or you can set the environment variable. I want to use an env file. How can I make my poetry? Oh, I can put it in the main.py. I want to run this command and have my Python program. I'm making this stupid. Okay. I have a file. I want to run the below command and have my Python program consume an environment variable declared in here's the main.py file. Please update it to read from .env. Okay, so let's go get the main.py file. And it's only about 50 lines. Cool, so we'll add the .env package. Easy enough. Update to include these lines. Very, very easy. It really does not want to format my file. Whatever. Time to hack. That's right. Where'd you learn most of your programming? Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. Oh, yes, I do. I learned most of my coding while I was on the job. But I've been coding for 10 years, so that's not going to be true for somebody who's starting out, right? When I first started out, I think I learned most of it from Codecademy, probably. That was years ago. Okay, here, so now I will make a new file, .env, and .template, .env.template. And here, open OpenAI, what did it call it? OpenAI key. So in the template, I'll put OpenAI key foobar, or your key here. That's fine. Oh, let me put it in double quotes as well. Okay, and then here, I'm going to take this off screen and use my Oh, let me also make sure that I git ignore it. Git ignore. Cool, now it's ignored. So let me take this off screen. And where's OpenAI? Those tabs are coming back to bite me, aren't they? Here it is. It's because they have this like black like thing that's hard to see in dark mode. Okay, so we'll go to my keys and I'll make a new one. So let me drag this off screen. Copy that, revoke the old one. Okay, now we have a new one. And close that environment variable file. And now I can bring this back over here. I'm a BA and I'm curious to know the development on how to set up an API integration. Yeah, I mean, it depends on the particular API, but they are often going to use REST. You need a client-server relation, basically. And then you need to know the API. What is the protocol? Is it going to use REST, HTTP? Is it going to be something else? Is it going to use gRPC? But for the most part, we're still using HTTPS. And so then it would just be a web request. Get, post, put, or delete, something like that. Those are the RESTful verbs. Patch options if you want to get weird. Okay, so now let's try this hangman game. No key provided. Why does it think no key provided? Here, this is a different application, close to the right. This is going on within the OpenAI package. No key provided. Okay. OpenAI. Where's OpenAI actually called? All right, let me move. I defined the env file under the GPT Engineer folder. Let me move it to the root and see if that fixes this problem. And I've only got 3 minutes remaining. I was hoping we were pretty close, but I gotta go grab my kiddos. So we'll move those. It's still being ignored successfully, that's good. Bring this back on screen again. So you can see I moved their location. It still insists that that I don't have an environment variable. Line 58 under execute and then it calls app. Here's the app command. GPT Engineer AI. Okay, maybe this is where it's actually happening. I'm going to just check the length on this just to see if it's even getting loaded. Okay, so we got this goofy thing. So that's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So if it says 7, then that is just the default string there. It says 51. So it's getting the key there. Let's do this. If the 0 character is equal to, is it basically failing to ignore the double quote? False. So it is ignoring the double quote. Because see, we start with double quote, but it should get away from that. So this is getting set into memory. But yeah, I think we don't have time to fix this issue, and we'll have to take it up in another session. OpenAI. Okay, let's try this. Malformed key. Okay. So maybe it is still having trouble with the double quote. Let's go. Nope, it still complains about it either way. All right, so I will try to figure out what's going on there and update y'all in the next session. Thanks for being here. Make sure to follow. Bro, what you doing? We're wrapping up the stream. I was trying to get GPT Engineer to build a code base, but I ran into an issue where it could not understand my environment variable for my API key for OpenAI. Bummer. Link to YouTube in my bio, and I hope you will check that out. Talk to you later. What's up?
I'm just playing Mega Crush to crush the weed in the house.
Cool.